You sound fine coming in though. I think maybe a little soft. Maybe try talking
Really?
again.
How about right now? I have this like a new shining like a MacBook Pro, so it should be good. This has latest
Oh,
technology,
that's
right?
that's super
Yeah.
How
cool.
much
Yeah.
RAM you got on that bad
Okay.
boy, Raullen?
I don't know, 64 or something.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
perfect for Chrome.
That's
Not anything else. That'll barely run Chrome nowadays.
yeah, yeah. How's everything,
maybe
guys?
a render job in the future.
Yeah, potentially render job.
We haven't gotten to talk about crypto peaks yet. Like I know you were there last week. We haven't gotten a chance to catch up on that. How was the skiing? Like how was the sentiment amongst the VCs and the
Yeah,
crypto builders
very
that were
good,
there?
very good. So definitely very good. Everybody's looking forward to the upcoming boom market in Q3, Q4. Q2 might be a little bit quiet, but Q3, Q4 will be good. And also, they are very actively deployed investment right now. So a lot of company who hasn't got investment last year, especially the first 3 quarter, actually getting a lot of investment right now. It's very good.
I feel the same way. Like it seems like a lot more. I mean, DePIN's obviously the sector we're all paying the most attention to, probably, but it feels like a lot of DePIN projects are getting funded. Even some like kind of like follow on rounds because there's like a lot of interest.
Mhm.
So I think that's just great for the space, like broadly great for IoTeX. Um, yeah, it's like exciting times for sure to be
Yeah,
in crypto. We suffered through 2.5 years of brutal bear market, so
yeah.
we're reaping some of the
You know,
rewards now,
sometimes I
hopefully.
love bear market. Team has been focused on building the vision we have, right? Boom markets are always
Yeah.
too much noise. People was telling me, oh, you guys should do like what's that called? ERC 404? Something like I never heard about, but it gets really hot these 2 days. Yeah.
Some new token.
Some new token standard. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But that's not important.
When I feel like when people say crypto to refer to our industry, it feels like they're talking more about like deep in projects and like NFT mints and airdrops, kind of like the things that happen on top of the kind of core underlying consensus mechanisms and like cryptography that make all this work. But I know you got your start on the like the hardcore like cryptography side of things with a PhD and spending some time at Google and Uber. And maybe the industry was just less mature back in those days, so like the focus really was on cryptography versus like all the stuff that can be built on top. But I was just curious a bit to hear about like your experiences at Google and Uber, like how that shaped your understanding of like the underlying core cryptographic technology, and then also like what about crypto as we know it today, like all the exciting stuff that's built on top like DePIN
Definitely.
inspired you to leave the big tech companies and co-found IoTeX?
No, actually, yeah. My journey starts at my PhD at U Waterloo. Uh, where my research topic is cryptography. During that time, like my research is all about, how do we design cryptography systems that's lightweight enough that can be running on, very embedded devices like car, phone, so on and so forth. So Bitcoin white paper actually came to my eyes in the year of 2018, I think year end. Everybody was like so amazed about this thing is just too good to be true, right? So why such a thing exists? A bunch of folks use the lab computer to mine the token, so that's where I got into Bitcoin, and obvious like a very frustrated, by not be able to break it. So that's why I fall in love with it. I was a very
You're trying to break Bitcoin at
because
first?
who would believe such a absurd thing, right? At the first glance, it's just absurd to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, then I was like involved into like a Canadian Bitcoin community, pretty active over there during my PhD study. And then when I was actually graduating in the year of 2012, using Sam's words, to describe Phoenix is a three people like crypto city. Still, like Coinbase is just a three people company during that time. So crypto is
Wow.
not an industry at all, right? Very few people, very small crowds actually, working on crypto. Of course, Google gave me an offer. I just like a no brainer for me, was like one of my dream companies. So just going there, stay there for 5 years, pretty good at the very beginning, but later you realize, the things they are working on is very boring, right? It's just like a waste of talent sometimes. Yeah, then I joined Uber, stayed there for almost 2 years at the hyper growth stage, working with like the founder, CEO, TK, side by side almost. very much focused on security, privacy. By the way, Google actually gave me a lot of knowledge about infra distributed system, while Uber actually gave me a sneak peek into the DePIN, right? Which we not now talk about DePIN, was something coined as like sharing economy in the year of 2016, 2017-ish, I think. Uber basically taught me a lesson about how the share economy works, how we incentive drivers, how we incentive riders, how we incentivize the kind of matchmaking on the platform, so magic happens over there. That's the thing. Then after that, I stayed in a very small kind of autonomous car company as a chief security officer for just a few months. It's a startup, basically, gets acquired by Amazon very soon later. Then year end 2017, that's I co-founded IoTeX with Jing and Kevin all together. We started this journey, very much from the IoT blockchain perspective, now evolved into the DePIN this is right now.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like, what about crypto as we know it today motivated you to leave big tech? Like, it sounds like you weren't always happy with like the level of how interesting the projects were, like at Google that you were working on. Like, you wanted to work on maybe more cutting edge stuff. It also sounds like the industry probably evolved and matured over time, so there was like more opportunity to even
Mm-hmm.
go out and leave big tech and launch your own layer one. But yeah, what was I guess behind the impetus to leave big tech and go co-found a layer one blockchain, like an idea as ambitious as that?
Yeah, I'm not like a strong believer into this open market sort of thesis, right? I feel like people should be free, capital should be free to flow into whatever is mostly interesting or beneficial for themselves. The same as talent, right? So Google basically captures, not Google, those big corporations just kept too much talented people working on, very boring stuff, which is not important, I think, at all. So let's say Google or Facebook. Actually, Facebook did a good job, right? So they laid off a lot of people in the past few quarters. They have a really good, like, strong
Mm-hmm.
earnings for this quarter. The same thing, applies to Apple, Google, Amazon. I feel the same. So that's why, I feel like, as a talented people, you definitely like want to work on the things that will build up the future for the human being. That's why I think the crypto decentralized technology is a way, is a philosophy, is a place I want to be.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think you mentioned it in terms of when you co-founded IoTeX, but that was obviously in 2017, which is a while ago now. I mean,
Yeah.
especially for crypto projects, like 6 7 years is almost like a lifetime to have been alive for. I wrote this in our year in review blog post, but the way I think about IoTeX having been around for a while is like, each year that passes that IoTeX is alive and thriving, doing well, like, it becomes a little bit more Lindy with each year that passes. Like, it's harder to kill, a little tougher, little like better on a survival kind of, I think, time frame or standpoint. So maybe tell us a bit about like what you've learned steering IoTeX through multiple crypto cycles now, and like all the volatility and ups and downs that come with that.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that. That's a very interesting question. So if you think about, like, crypto is always roughly 3 years bear and 1 year bull, right? So the bull is basically people are greedy and adding too much leverage to the capital market. That's why you see the price is always like this, and then just crash, stay kind of stabilize accumulation for another 3 years. Um, so that's why, like, building a crypto startup is very much from building a traditional startup, like, let's say, mobile startup, internet startup, right? Because, like, if you build like an internet company, the cycle is always 10 years. You got enough time to build like a team, to work on the product, grow the product, grow to your ARR, eventually go into our next round, expanding the team, doing like a bigger scope project, so on and so forth. But crypto is very much different because, boom market, like I said before, is a lot of noisy, a lot of operation, right? You don't really have too much time to build stuff, to realize your real vision. But like the bear market, people are so disappointed, so sad, so down. People want to leave. Like, true builders will definitely stay here, but a lot of builders gets hyped into the cycle. Will mostly like leave. So that's why we leverage like the bear market to build stuff, and we leverage like the boom market basically to trying to sell the stuff. If you think about startup, right, it's all about build and sell. So you have to really keep the pace really, really well. So that's why I don't want to time the market, right? I'm not a smart person to time the market, but we have to sometimes. So that's perhaps one of the secret recipes we have, for surviving for almost 3 cycles.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. Definitely have seen that kind of internally. In terms of kind of like why deepen, or like why you've steered the IoTeX ship to be so focused on the intersection of like the real world and blockchains. Yeah, like why have you been so focused on kind of like deepen and real world asset sectors of crypto within your whole kind of crypto career? Like what's exciting about deepen versus other maybe previously more popular sectors like
Mm-hmm.
DeFi or like NFTs? Like why the focus on kind of deepen in the real world?
Yeah, so my thesis is always crypto starts from like a very small group of people, almost a utopia type of people, right? So that's kind of like a Ethereum folks. I love them, by the way. Uh, Starting from them, excuse me. Yeah, then it's slowly kind of expanding to the real world. As you can tell, Bitcoin is, starting from like a bunch of miners. Now it's like a, ETF right now, right? Um, so we always are thinking about crypto is kind of eating the world eventually, and slowly it's actually happen. And we want different like a target more on the outliers of when crypto kind of overflows to the real world. So that's why we target IoT and blockchain at the very much beginning of IoTeX because of this philosophy. And now because deeping, right, like you guys too. So we are so lucky to find you guys, who also believe this vision about deeping, this is about deeping. Sami, Mahesh, EV3, Saul, Connor, Steve, you guys. So that's why like this basically gave me even more belief into like we're working on the right direction. So yeah, basically help the people to adopting crypto to basically make their life a little bit better.
For sure. Yeah, it's been awesome to see kind of like the slow but steady growth of like talent in deepen. Like it's obviously also still very kind of nascent of like an industry, and there's not that many people, but the more kind of talented people that we can get thinking about deepen, working in deepen, or at least aware of it, I think is kind of a benefit for everyone here. Um, so yeah, I think that makes sense on kind of the why deepen, why real world assets. Sammy, were you
Yeah,
gonna say
no,
something?
I'd love to jump in, and I think this is a good time to segue into talking about like what IoTeX is. And so, Raullen, if you had to explain it to somebody who doesn't have any background, what would be your elevator pitch? And then, if you could also touch on like how IoTeX is contributing to the deepening ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. So I would describe IoTeX as like one modularized infra plus many public goods for making deeping like a real growing sector, right? So let me explain to what does that mean. Um, for the modularity piece, basically we have our own layer one, which is super fast, it's decentralized, basically EVM compatible. But most importantly, we have this like off-chain compute, we call it WebStream. It's an off-chain ZKP compute layer, basically can aggregate a lot of data coming from millions of like devices in the real world into some concise proof, which can be processed by the blockchain. So that's kind of like our secret source in terms of like infra provides. In addition to that, we also have like an identity layer, which is kind of we're going to launch this year, as well as this hardware abstraction layer. Because when it comes to the hardware, there are always a lot of um, complexity that slows down the launch of deepin projects a lot, right? So that's another one. But like entirely, the why we're going for modularity is because we believe inclusion for deepin builders. So we believe deepin building a deepin project is not necessarily just like belong to a few teams who can raise like a 10 mil, 20 mil, 100 mil, right, at the very beginning. It belongs to everybody who can come here, maybe 3-5 persons team. They should be able to build like a helium type of Wi-Fi network over the weekend, pretty much as DeFi and NFT as we saw in the previous cycles. So that's like the fundamental thesis we have for deepin. That's why we have this modularity design. On the side, we also have some public goods because we feel like everybody is very much focused on their own vertical, Wi-Fi transportation, energy, so on and so forth. There must be some guy, who has some, extra cycles can do some public good for deeping. So that's why we have deeping scan, which is more like a coin market cap, but very specific or tailored for deeping builders, miners, and investors. Basically, this one is getting a lot of tractions right now, but it's all for free. So if you have a deeping project, you want to have more exposure, definitely, contact us to get listed on the DePIN scan. And another one, public good we have is called Liquid Hub. Basically, we saw some early stage DePIN project. They have this difficulty to having their tokens, listed on good CEX or getting liquidity, right? So that's where they can just kick off like a growth flywheel. So that's why we provide this Liquid Hub for free, so they can get the token listed on our DEX. Plus, we have some sort of liquidity mining stuff. Corner lovely knows this way better than me, by the way. Then we can help them to grow their token even on day one. Yeah, so we're kind of continuous building those public good stuff on the side, while we are actually building up our modular pieces as well.
Yeah, so let's kind of focus first on the EVM compatible chain that you mentioned. So you guys are largely targeting DePIN specific projects. So you could describe IoTeX almost as like a DePIN specific L1. What we've seen in the last year, obviously, like Solana has really taken off and has become almost a preferred platform for some DePIN builders. But more recently, we've seen these high throughput chains like Sui, Monad, Aptos also emerge, which are all very well capitalized. And in some cases, they're even writing 7-figure checks to some DePIN projects to have them come launch on their chain. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, how do you envision, one, is this like a competitive landscape, or are you more like how competitive is this in your eyes? And also, how would you convince, or what value propositions would you describe to a founder in order to convince them to come launch on IoTeX?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I just got a lot of such questions from investors, from community. Yes, the answer is it's a very competitive, like a battlefield. So a lot of people, a lot of layer ones, layer twos for now, they're just competing for the apps or applications building on top, right? Like you can tell there are like several categories of application, DeFi being one of them, game, NFT, DePIN now become like a growing kind of application or scenario driven category for a lot of layer one, layer twos. So which is good for DePIN, but which is also create a lot of competition here. So IoTeX is different. Like we have a very high like a TPS, high throughput. So now it looks like this is a must-have for almost every layer one and layer two. But at the same time, so we can shape our chain in terms like a tech feature as well as the token economics very much towards like the DePIN project, which I don't think Solana can do this. Right, because they are more like a general purpose layer one, so they cannot do the Solana token economics too much leaning towards the DePIN per se. All right, so they still have to consider like a game developer, DeFi developer, so on and so forth. I think the same thing applies to SUI, SEI, and there are some other Arbitron as well, layer one, layer two. But we can do something very aggressive. Like you guys will see actually in the IoTeX 2.0, which is like a big vision white paper that is upcoming this year. So we will do IoTeX token economics very much to incentivize DePIN builders come here to build in a decentralized and transparent way.
Thanks a lot, Raullen.
It's an alpha alert right there.
That makes a lot of sense. What do you really think, looking around, because IoTeX is kind of this ecosystem that has a lot of different projects involved with it. What do you think DePIN founders are really looking for at the moment? And how are you really working to solve those problems? Like, what are the real trade-offs you think that building on IoTeX gives people that they can't get elsewhere, that really sort of should drive attention and builders towards you over the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think DePIN builders are very much different from DeFi builders per se, right? So DePIN builders are always ambitious, kind of have some sort of like a Web2 experience in different sectors. So they want to change the world. They want to they are not too like a finance focused person or people, but like they very much want to change the world. That's the type of persona we saw after talking with so many DePIN founders. Of course, what they need first is money, right? Is somewhere so they can get their dream started by having people to do investment or some sort of like an incentive so they can get kind of kick off the flywheel. I think, so definitely on this side, so we're helping them or like attracting them by having this accelerator program. Basically launch, I think, in the past months with Future Money and the Foresight X all together. to give them the first check, basically. Then what we're going to launch in IoTeX 2.0, as I mentioned, this token economics part is give them like the incentives in terms of IoTeX token. So they can still like hold the IoTeX service, or they can sell, basically capitalize some of their like kind of initial growth on IoTeX, right? So once it kind of grows bigger, so we want to get them onto like a liquid hub, which is for free. So they have their token kind of trading, miners selling, or speculators buying, so they can have this economics ongoing. Then eventually, so I think we want them kind of taking off from here. And another one, I forgot to mention, is once they get into like a growth stage, like a helium, a demo, or like a larger type of projects, so they will have a lot of devices. So that's where the off-chain compute actually kicks in. Because how can you make sure like you have a fair token economics by rewarding people if they drive 200 miles per day or whatever, right? So you can't do this in a very centralized way on day one when you were very, very small. But like when you already have like a few hundred, few thousand, a few million devices around the world, so this off-chain part has to be like a fair, transparent, decentralized in a way. So WebStream is actually waiting here for those projects to get into that stage. Who can? So we provide this like a zero knowledge proof off-chain compute. So technically, it's very similar to like a ZK rollup if you think about it, right? How can I make sure all the off-chain transactions are fair, correct, right, and also that are testable? Which is basically ZK technology behind. The same thing happens here for the device. So which contribute their data to this web stream, which kind of converts to a proof for smart contracts on chain.
Yeah, WebStream is almost like a ZK coprocessor, right, Raullen? Yeah. And it's interesting to me as well because you have all these DePIN hardware devices in the wild, which are generating data, and there's this cryptographic key within those devices, which is signing that data. However, that data in its natural form is just like raw, and typically it needs to be like processed, refined and transformed in order to be used in like downstream applications, or even to just like derive insights from it, similar to what you were talking about. So I love the idea, and there definitely needs to be the verifiable aspect to it as well, because you can't just do all that processing off chain and then have a smart contract come and then like ingest that data. So could you give like I guess just like a tangible example or like a real type of example just to help the listeners kind of understand how that workflow could look like, and maybe like if these smart contract applications could end up utilizing some of that data, like what's a potential use case there?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you an example, right? So we have done like a POC with Demo and the Streamer recently, all together with WebStream and IoTeX chain. So the demo is like the POC is really simple. So basically, demo supplies the data from a device on a customer's car. Basically says, oh, this guy drives 200 miles or maybe 100 miles per day, right? And this data actually goes through like a streamers, like a pipeline, data pipeline, pops up pipeline, goes to WebStream. Then WebStream has a circuit basically to attest if this is true or not by looking at the odometer kind of rating. Says, oh, this car actually drives like a 200 miles per day, right? So this become like concise as AKP, which goes to a smart contract sitting on IoTeX chain, says, oh, dude, this guy has been driving really well, give him like a 10 tokens. So they're going to basically we're going to demonstrate this one to an insurance company to see how much interest they have. But it's a very interesting demo. I think we will showcase to the people later.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys can hear. There's like some construction, of course, that started above me. So if it's terrible, I can just have Sami ask my question.
It's fine.
For now,
It's
I'll
part of the deep
it's
corner.
it's not bad.
It's part of the what?
Part of the deeping, right? Physical infrastructure behind you.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to talk to those guys after. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's helpful to have like a tangible kind of real world example of what we're building. Something I've been pleasantly surprised with since joining the team, Raullen, is like I think the depth and level of like hardware specific expertise on the team. I don't think this is something that like really many projects in crypto have. I mean, even deep in projects, deep in infrastructure projects, especially, like it just seems like with Shin Shin and everyone else you've got on the team, like there's a lot of very deep like hardware expertise. So if you could talk a bit about like maybe the team's hardware chops and how that plays into the broader kind of IoTeX strategy, whether it's with SDKs or Device Connect, and just like yeah, how you see our hardware chops playing into the the broader IoTeX kind of go to market.
Yeah, sure. So we did two experiments, go-to-market experiments in the year of 2020 to 2022, right? So the first one is like a UCAN smart home camera, basically around using blockchain to provide your privacy together with TEE authentication, so on and so forth. And this device has been like a winning CES award in 2020 and also still selling on Amazon.com. If you want to buy one, you can buy one right now. So this is experiment one, right? We don't have a token for this one, but it's a very kind of consumer facing device, still selling very well. Um, so this is one. Another one is called a Payable. That's in the year of 2021. So it's more like a kind of like a small tracker with other 16 sensors. So you can track your velocity, location, light, what else? Like a temperature, maybe carbon dioxide level, so on and so forth. So this one is more like a to developer type of hardware, right? So we are not going to selling this to consumer people. But when we put this on cross supply, which is a Kickstarter for hardware in United States, we sold 2,000 in 2 weeks because we kind of promising like a token mining for this one. So this gave us a lot of inspiration about, oh, people really don't care about the underlying blockchain technology or privacy at all, right? What they care is about the tokens, the earnings part. Um, so this gave a lot of inspiration for like an early definition about the thing we call it machine fi. But Sami, thank you for coming up with this DePIN terminology, which is basically better capture what is going on here. So we kind of switched to talk about DePIN as our part of our identity, right? So after these two experiments, we found, okay, so doing a hardware is really hard, right? So like the team has been working hard 1 year at most, you can ship like one hardware. So we're not a hardware company at all, right? So we do this because we want to try out, basically we want to walk through everything like the hardware, like the DePIN builders have to go through. And we found like the pain points here. The pain points is, dealing with the supply chain, dealing with manufacturer, dealing with different variations of hardware. That's why we come up with like one product. We haven't official launch yet, but some of our partners actually are testing it out. It's called Device Connect. We want to abstract away, ideally, right? We want to abstract away everything about the hardware to make it very universal. So you can use this one on your phone app as well, because phone is a device. You can use this one on Raspberry Pi, on ESP32, on Arduino, even other kind of sensors or boards. So which will, we hope at least, kind of expedite a lot of the progress for people to do in hardware. So, ideally, I still want like a DeFi pace, right? So you can have like a DePIN project over a weekend.
Yeah, and I just had a random question that I wanted to ask you since you mentioned smartphones. Do you see smartphones as being the future of, deep in devices? And like I guess an example would be Hive Mapper with their specific device that they have for mapping, and then Natix using the smartphone. So with your hardware background, what do you think in general is going to be the trend that we continue to see in this next cycle? Is it going to be, are there trade-offs? Most likely there are trade-offs, but if you had a bet, what do you think it's going to be the majority of deep in projects using?
Yeah, good question, Sam. Yeah, I feel like a phone is a very low cost, low upfront cost type of device. You can try out different ideas, right? So like for this car driving, collecting like a mapping information, as an example, using phone to start is not a bad idea, but like a phone has a lot of limitations. Once you kind of identify the vertical is really kind of promising, I feel like you should still go for the specific hardware approach, having like a higher definition of the camera, like a better connectivity, right? So on and so forth. So phone is more like a kind of experiment field for deeping ideas.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it plays into the thesis you had about lowering the barrier to entry for deepins, like both with IoTeX infrastructure and also just with like general purpose hardware and devices, right? If you don't need to go out and design an entirely new custom device, you can obviously launch much faster. And kind of edge devices like smartphones have been getting more and more powerful, just kind of as like a technological trend. More compute, more storage, more bandwidth on these new wireless networks. So all that kind of leads to them being used more often, I think.
How do you guys think about
I
it?
think you
Sorry,
mentioned.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Connor. How do you guys think about this like a Vision Pro? Do you see any like a DePIN projects around that?
I haven't tried it, but I would love to. Have you?
No, not yet. But I saw a lot of good stuff about this Vision Pro.
I mean, it could be the hardware. Like, well, you would need Apple to open up some kind of API access to third party developers. But if you could take like visual input, like imagery from your Apple device or other like measurements that it takes, and some other application could use those, then you could like issue tokens based on contributing that data. I mean, you could be walking around and like mapping for HiveMapper like with your Apple Vision Pro or native.
That's a good
It'd be
point. I never
interesting.
thought about that.
That'd be hilarious. Literally walking around mapping earning tokens with the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say, Raullen, quick question to you on that point. When you launched IoTeX and MachineFi, you have a pretty good ecosystem of partners, right? Like original investors are guys like Samsung Next, like Draper, people at the end of the day that care a lot about machine infrastructure and about hardware. I'd love it if you would talk maybe just a little bit about kind of how those relationships have continued to develop. And I think what people are really interested in is like whether there are any like early indications of real world adoption coming from some of the investors that might have at the earlier stages poured a lot of capital into things in the space. So, any color you can kind of share around that, about sort of investors that you're seeing get really excited about this. If you could touch on sort of previous investors as well and kind of what you're sort of seeing them doing, that would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So we have aside from crypto, we have some like collaboration with sort of like industry partners as well. Like you mentioned about Samsung, right? So we also work with Google. We work with ARM, like the chip manufacturer as well as Qualcomm. So for them, of course, adopting like a new kind of controversial technology is not too fast, but like definitely like we are trying like a different ideas. I think starting from 2019, so there is some experiment around supply chain, right? Automatic kind of settlement of the supply chain payment, supply chain finance. I think that's the first shoot we have. Later, we actually work with ARM on those like confidential computing on the edge device type of idea. Xinxin, our head of research, is mostly driving those efforts. And recently, Samsung, right, who invested in us in last year. So we were talking with like a different BUs in Samsung. Some of them are doing kind of like a phone, as you're mentioning. Some of them doing some mobile devices, home IoT devices, camera devices, so on and so forth. Specifically, we were talking about this camera data, right? So because camera data becomes very valuable in the context of AI machine learning, right, to make machine or smart, even smarter than us. So there is some kind of ongoing, chats, collaboration about how can we just incentivize people to having them to contribute their camera data, like outdoor camera data specifically, to some machine learning models to make it great. But still, like I said, so those efforts are going very slow. I still feel like the real world adoption is happening in about 3 to 5 years, not next year.
Got it. So it still seems like it's a lot of experimentation and people testing new primitives and trying to figure out how it can kind of move into their business.
Exactly. Another one actually I forgot to mention is Aura Ring. So this is also our partner too. So they have this ring, basically measure your heart rate and everything else, give you a sense of, oh, did you have a good sleep? Did you eat good? Did you, work out well? So also we're kind of working with them because they kind of want to monetize people's data in a way to, letting people to contribute more data to them at the same time, deliver like a good analysis even across many crowds to people in a way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We mentioned it, or you mentioned it previously a bit, but I wanted to dive in a little bit more on the Marshall DAO and IIP 23, which just passed. So, I mean, just maybe like imagine you're speaking to like a DePIN builder, right? Like, how would you articulate the potential value or benefit to a DePIN builder of the Marshall DAO? Like, what should they be excited to hear that IoTeX is doing here.
Yeah, so we want to be like a very transparent on how can we, have a win-win with you guys as a DePIN builders conversation, right? So basically, if you can hook up more devices to produce more sort of off-chain proofs using WebStream, you're getting more IoTeX tokens. I think this will be financially very interesting to some very early stage projects, right?
That makes sense, and it's basically like an allocation, like voting to allocate IoTX token flows towards various use cases, kind of
Yeah,
proposals. So it's basically like using the IoTeX market cap and token as a way to kind of like community crowdsource or
yeah.
fund different
So
DePIN
I
use
can use like
cases.
Curve DAO as an example or analogy here, right? So you guys know Curve. Curve has done a great job in terms of using Curve token to incentivize liquidity for like a specific trading pairs, right? Then um, kind of collecting sort of like a trading fee to support like the Curve token on the back. So we kind of borrow a similar concept of, oh, we're not, purely incentivize liquidity using Marshall DAO, but we kind of incentivize off-chain compute because so I think Andreessen called this DePIN verification. We just call this off-chain compute. It's the same thing, right? I feel like if DePIN has a future, so this is a must-have kind of component in the system to make it successful. All right. So now we kind of borrow the same idea from CurveDAO, but we incentivize, okay, DePIN builders, let's do the off-chain verification on day one, right? So you're getting something here. And of course, we have like a whole design why this is sustainable to also grow the IoTeX token as well.
For sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's something I'm very excited to see come out of IoTeX in the next couple months.
Yeah.
Want to move us to our lightning round here at the end. It's something we've been doing recently, but basically, we'll just ask you your opinion on a couple different topics, and if you can kind of just give us your like gut
Okay.
reaction, and it can be like a short phrase or a couple sentences, just like whatever you think. But it's just a fun way to get some personality
Okay.
out of our guests. So yeah, I think the first one I want to start off with is what's your opinion on skiers versus snowboarders? I know you're a big skier, and it's usually like a point of contention. So yeah, how do you feel about skiers versus
No, I'm
snowboarders?
really good at like a skier, right? So I'm like a double diamond type of skier. So I'm really good. I try snowboard like once or twice. I like it too. I feel like I'm just like maybe too late to pick it up. So if I were like a younger, like a 10 year, 20 years, maybe I would try snowboard as well. I like both.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely prefer skiing. There was a time where I thought I liked snowboarding more because I like surfing, but I caught a couple edges on the snowboard and just realized like I'm way more comfortable on skis. I can go
Yeah.
faster. Like I just enjoy it more overall. Gotcha. That's cool to hear. What about like having a kid or kids? Like how has that impacted your life? How's that changed your perspective on
No,
things?
I think that's good, right? So kids give you sometimes great ideas happens when you kind of disconnect from work. This not just happened to me, it happened to a lot of scientists, right? A lot of like entrepreneurs as well. So you have to really thinking hard on some problem, like you kind of disconnect, do meditation, do running, then the great, sparks basically come. I feel like this happened to me a lot of times, when you're dealing with family, kids, running. I love to run as well. Um, yeah, so I just keep it going.
Yeah, that's what I use the shower
Yeah.
for, but I might need to have a kid soon because I'm not really getting that many good shower thoughts recently.
All right. Good point.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do,
Yeah.
Sammy. Um, Raullen, what about living in the Bay Area? I know there's been a lot of contention, maybe back kind of during COVID, but it was like the Miami mayor was like, how can we help? And he was trying to get all these tech and crypto folks over to Miami from the Bay Area and kind of like recreate, San Francisco and Silicon Valley over here. I think it's worked to some extent, but I think there's also still a lot of like talent and like a nexus of talent in the Bay. So I think you've been living out there for a while now. Like, what's your opinion on living in the Bay Area versus kind of anywhere else
Yeah.
for quality of life, for tech connections, investment, all that
Sure. I
stuff?
have like a mixed feeling about Bay Area, right? So I love the weather here, so which gave me like a almost sunny every day. So I can just run out. I love indoor stuff. um, but I feel like a Bay Area, although it has a lot of talents, just give like basically Google or Facebook, those big corporations is like a black hole to talents. So they will just suck you in when you were young, and give you a good salary, good promotion, good food, right? Keep you there for multiple years. Then you realize, oh, I'm already 45. It's just too late to start something new, right? I feel like that's kind of like a lot of things happening here is like this. The talents gets trapped. So that's why we see some crypto partners here, crypto company here, but not too much. Investors, yes, we do see a lot of investors, but most of them still have the stereotype about crypto because they're coming along from those internet stage, right? So they look at the ARR, they look at like the what's it called, like the DAU, those metrics instead of like a new kind of crypto like a metrics.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I know you've tweeted about this before, but I'm curious if you could expand a bit on it. Is Bitcoin the first DePIN in your
I
opinion?
think so. Sammy, how do you think?
No, I mean, because if you consider Bitcoin to be the first DePIN, then you have to consider every layer one to also be a DePIN. And so I've kind of shifted the definition of what I consider to be DePIN as any project that's utilizing a hardware device for an activity besides securing their blockchain, which basically like blocks out a lot of the L1s, L2s, L3s.
Right.
But Bitcoin was the first to everything. So I think, we could get away with saying they were the first DePIN as well.
Mahesh, how about you? How do you think?
I just think at the end of the day, guys, it's all going to be DePIN by the time it's over. And I
Well
don't think
said.
having a perspective beyond that is worth anything at the end of the day. And Steve, I hope you print that as a social flip.
Let's go. Yeah.
That's fucked.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the term is DePIN is still so new that like we probably do want to take as much market cap and like other projects' attention as possible, and like maybe in the future it's worth kind of defining further. But I think for now it's kind of like, yeah, you want to leave it an open question potentially. Agree with Mahesh. Um, Raullen, we've talked a bit about this one on one, but I mean, my thinking on like meme coins and NFTs within crypto has definitely evolved a bit over the past couple of years. I know yours has as well. So, I mean, how do you think about meme coins and NFTs in the context of crypto and maybe specifically DePIN? Do you like them? Do you think they have some value, or are you kind of like, this is like an annoying community driven thing? I don't want to have to think about this. Like, yeah, what do you think about
Yeah.
meme coins and NFTs?
My perspective on meme coin has changed a lot in the past few years. At the very beginning, it's a shit coin, who cares, right? Now it's towards like, okay, so this is a very interesting way to propagate information among a lot of people. Let's, try to look into why this works and how this works. I think I have a tweet to talk about the meme is like a win for a lot of things, right? So if we give this win to DePIN, so there is an interesting like a DePIN inscription actually launched on IoTeX. Speaking of which, got a lot of transactions and also tractions in Q4 last year. Basically proves this one. So that's why I do think meme is very, very important. Because think about like most of the people in this world, they really don't understand what we're talking about right now, right? Few people understand. But like a lot of people, they understand those like animal fun kind of, price 100x overnight type of stuff. Almost everybody understands, right? So we should leverage this one as a kind of channel or like a media trying to kind of advocate like a DePIN this is or the DePIN world we want to build.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Which DePIN do you think is going to be the helium of this cycle?
Are you asking me, Sammy?
Yeah.
I'm so biased on this one.
My questions are all very biased.
Yeah, I think IoTeX we will do good this year, because we are so prepared, and also at the same time we do see a lot of DePIN builders, very smaller like a projects or teams. They want to try something big, right? So we're here for them. So that's why I feel like IoTeX should be good. Other than that, I know, Sammy, you have a lot of interest into Tau bit tensor. I feel like they are also doing something really interesting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am Tau pilled to the max.
You're a Tau Max right now?
Yeah, I'm a Tau maxi.
Okay, so you're biased. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually gonna have that be one of my questions. I was just gonna say the word bit tensor and see what you would respond, but then I was like, maybe that's not the best use of Raullen's time.
Yeah. No, that's all good.
I actually think we should add that to the lightning round going forward. One of the questions should just be the word bit tensor. And see
Just
what
bit
people
tensor.
react.
Hey, I'm down.
I think you'd get some crazy fucking reactions.
Yeah.
I mean, their community is one of the craziest in crypto. I'm sure that the social club would do well.
And,
But if we have that every week, it might be a bit bit tensor focused.
All right,
and
so
also, go for it.
go ahead.
No, I say like I think Connor knows this too, right? So we interact with a lot of like smaller like DePIN projects. Although some of them are really small, like not shiny right now. We feel like they got a lot of energy behind the scenes. So yeah, it will not be surprised to see like a 100x type of coins coming out from DePIN this year.
Agreed. So
Bullish.
kind of related to bit tensor, how many years do you think until humanity unlocks artificial general intelligence?
Wow, this is a tough one. I don't know. I'm not an AI person, but I feel like it's getting closer, right? I feel like the next bottle for AI is mostly around energy. If you think about it, right? You can have to consume a lot of energy to produce a very, very powerful model, right? Do we have this type of energy? No. So where do we harvest this type of energy? Yeah, nuclear, those hypervision stuff, solar panel. Yeah, so that's also tied back to DePIN, way.
Yeah, I recently learned about space-based solar energy, which just kind of blew my mind. But there's a bunch of interesting experimentation happening in the energy space. Last question on my front. Connor Lovely, thoughts?
Thoughts on what?
I'm just giving you one word. Whatever comes to mind. Worst employee ever.
Who is Connor Lovely?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lovely. Does it work for me? No way.
I guess that summarizes it. He's not even sure if Connor's still
great.
employed with the
Connor's
company.
great. I was joking. Yeah, Connor is definitely great. Young, smart, hungry, and very much into the DePIN space. He almost knows everybody in the DePIN space, and also gave us a lot of insights in terms of what do they want. Actually, I have to give the credit back to Connor Lovely to have this idea about DePIN scan. Right, I think this type of like a first thing he got on board. He pointed out, DePIN scan is super important. Gave early stage project a lot of exposure, and also growth stage project a lot of exposure. So let's do this all together. I think he kind of like sold this idea around the team. So that's why we built DePIN scan. Thanks for that.
For sure. Yeah, thank you for the kind words. And it's been super cool to see it emerge as kind of like a product, like a public good within IoTeX. And I think a lot of attention is on it now. A lot of projects are integrated and using it. So that's really cool to see. But yeah, Raullen, with that, we're almost at time here. So just want to ask if there's anything else you want to touch on, anywhere you want to point our listeners to find out about more about you, more about IoTeX, just kind of any last thoughts before we wrap up.
Sure. First, want to say thank you to everybody here. So you guys are like the core of the DePIN. So definitely, I'm so fortunate to work with you guys very closely on this DePIN, right? So it's not something like we can just work on by IoTeX ourselves. We have to work with you guys. You guys are definitely way smarter than we are. So that's one thing. Second one is, if you want to find more information about me, so my Twitter handle is Raullen, Raullen. IoTeX is IoTeX.io. So there's more information over there.
Raullen, we're definitely not way smarter than you. If we were way smarter than you, that would be a problem.
Sure. Another one is not sure when we will get this one out, but the team, 20% of the IoTeX team will be in East Denver this year, which is end of February, early March. So if you want to meet the team, meet me in person, definitely come to our event. And also we can invite you to the Airbnb house we have over there.
We're going to be doing it very big. It's going to be the biggest DePIN event of the year. We did it really big at East Denver last year, so very excited for this one.
Now do it in a Trump
Raullen,
voice.
Thank you so much for...
It's going to be the biggest event of the year. It's going to be bigger than anything else the world has ever seen.
We did it bigly. We're going to be doing it even biglier. Yeah, exactly.
Is your Donald Trump
Raullen,
British,
thank you.
bro?
I don't know. I don't do voice impersonations often. That sounds like that's your secret talent. But yeah, Raullen, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome. Excited to get this out and get it into the kind of crypto Twitter world and see what people think. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll be in touch about kind of when we're thinking about releasing it and social clip schedule and all of that shortly. So thank you.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Raullen.